Hey guys, I'm back with another video to teach you how to build web applications with React. So in this video, we are going to learn a very interesting topic, that is how to build a pagination in React applications. So I have this React application that's running on my local host 3001, and I also have a fresh React application that's running on localhost 3000. So basically in this video, we are going to try and replicate this application into a fresh React application, and we are going to learn how to build this kind of pagination into our React applications. So I'll show you how this pagination is working here. So here you can see that we have some data that's displayed on the screen. So there are 10 rows in this, and we can see that there is a pagination below this table. And using this pagination, I can actually decide how I want to display this data on the screen. For example, if I change the number of rows I want to display on the screen to 4, it will display only 4 rows on the screen, and it will divide this into different pages. I can go to the next page and the next page. So because there are 10 rows in total and there are 4 rows per page, so there are total of 3 pages that are being showed on the screen. So I can change the number of rows I want to show on the screen. Let's say if I change the number of rows that I want to show on the screen to 1, so it will show 1 row per page. So it means we'll have in total 10 pages in this application. And if I change this to 5, so there are 5 rows per page and we have only 2 pages. So we'll see how to build this kind of pagination into React applications. So stay tuned till the end of the video, and if you have not subscribed to the channel, subscribe now. I keep posting a lot of interesting projects on React, and if you find this video helpful, leave a like on this video. So let's start coding this application now. To implement this pagination in this fresh React application, we are going to use a Material UI. So we will start by installing Material UI, and we will see how to bring this pagination component from Material UI into this application. So let's start working on this fresh React application. So here I have a fresh React application. The first thing we are going to do is remove all this default code, and let's say hello world, and let's see if this application is working fine in the browser. So everything is working fine here. So the first thing we want to do to start building the pagination is to install the required packages. We are going to need Material UI in this application, so we will install Material UI. To install Material UI, I can find the command by searching Material UI install, and you will see the first link here that we can use to install Material UI. So this is the command that we are going to use to install Material UI. I'll copy this from here and go back to my React application, start a new terminal, and then paste it here and hit enter. So now we have a Material UI installed into this application. So before we start building the pagination, what we are going to do is we are going to just display this table, and we need some data to display it in the table form, and then we are going to bring pagination into this and implement pagination on that. So first let's try and build this simple table into the application. So as of now, our application is nothing but hello world. I'm going to replace it with this table. So let's go and do that. So here what I'll do is I need to import some things first. So I'm going to import React. I'm going to import use state and use effect from React. So once we have imported React and use state, use effect from React, I'm going to create one state variable into this application where we are going to save all the data that we need to display in the form of table. So we'll name it as data set data use state, and it's going to be some data that we are going to need, and we will save it here in the data variable. So I have some sample data that we are going to use to implement in this application. So I'll go and copy this data from here. I'll just paste it here. So this data is basically a sample data, but in real applications this data may be coming from some kind of API where you need to fetch the API and then display the data on the screen. But in this case, we are going to use this sample data to learn and try and build a pagination into this application. I'll leave a link to my GitHub in the description, so you can use this same data to practice on your own. So I'll be leaving a link in the description for my GitHub. So what we are going to do here is I have created a variable called rows, and we have some sample data here, and this data is in the form of array of objects. So what I'll do is I have a state variable called data. So I'm going to initialize this state variable with the rows, which is basically an array of objects. So we have our data now. So what we will do is we will try to replace this hello world and display this data in the form of a table here. So to do that, I have to like map over this data, which is an array, and I'm going to say for each item, I'm going to return a div component, and inside this div component we are going to have 3 more div components. So basically this div component is a row, and these are the 3 columns that we are going to need within the row, because this data is having 3. So actually this is having id, last name, first name, and age. So this is having 4 columns, so we are going to copy it 4 times here. So inside this I'm going to say item dot id. So I'll copy this chunk of code. I'll just show the first name here, and then we are going to display the last name, and the last would be age. So basically what we are doing here is we are mapping over this array. For each row in this array, we are displaying it in the form of div tags, and let's see how it looks on the screen after. So as of now, this data is being displayed all in the one column. So we are going to implement some CSS and try to improve how this data is being displayed here. So basically what I want is this is one row where it says ID, first name, last name, and the age of the person. So basically we need this to be displayed as a row in a table. So to do that, I'm going to implement some CSS into the application. So this is basically a one row. So I'm going to put some styling here, and I'll say display grid, because there are 4 columns inside this div. So we are going to divide this into grid template columns. We have to divide this into 4 columns. So I'll say 20%, 30%, 30%, and 20%. This will basically create 4 columns, and these 4 items will be displayed in 4 columns. Let's see how it looks on the screen. So now you can see that this data is looking much better. So basically in total there are 10 rows, and we can put some border around it just to show it in the form of table. So let's apply some more CSS here. So here I'm going to say border style to solid. So now we have a border around it, and what we can do is we can put some margin at the top to bring this table a little bit in the center. So we will do margin top, let's say 2%. Okay, so what this is doing is it's creating a margin between the rows. We do not want a lot of margin between the rows, so we can say margin top to be 1%. Okay, so this looks better now with the decent margins. So what we are going to do is here we are going to say margin top percent, say 5%. So this is going to bring the table in the center and have some margin from the top. So this is looking much better now. Actually, I think we don't need margin between the rows. We just need margin from the top. So I'm going to remove this margin here. So this is looking much better in the form of table. So we see that in row number 5, we have age that's missing. So we will find the row number 5 here, because the age is null here, but to simplify things I'm just going to put some random age 70. So now we can see that the table is complete, and now it's time to build pagination to this table, so we can display this data in the form of pagination. So we have only basically 10 rows here, but there can be like hundreds of or thousands of rows. The pagination logic will still work fine in that case. We can actually multiply this rows. Let's copy this again, paste it here. Now we are going to change the IDs here to 11. 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, 18, 19 and 20. So basically we want to increase the number of rows in our data and have 20 rows. So the pagination, we can build the pagination on that and see how the pagination works. So now I'm going to refresh my application and we have 20 rows in this table. This is looking much better. So now it's time to build pagination on this table, and for that we are going to use material UI. So I'm going to search something like material UI pagination. So we are going to check out the first link here. We'll see many types of pagination here, like one can be where the number of pages are there. We can implement all these kind of paginations on this table, but in this video we are going to use something called table pagination, which is looks like this, where we have options to choose how many rows we want to display on the page, and we do not have all the pages listed like here, but we have buttons to go next and previous on any page we want. So this is the kind of pagination we'll be implementing in this video. So to implement this pagination, I'm going to expand the code here, and we can look at this code and we can see that in this code the table pagination is being imported from material UI, and there are some state variables like page and how many rows per page are required on this pagination, and there are some functions here. So these functions are basically changing the number of rows on the page from here, and when somebody goes to the next page, so this is a function that's being applied on these buttons, and this is a function handle change rows per page that's being applied on this drop down. So let's copy some parts of code from here. So I'm going to copy this, import table pagination, go to the top of my application and copy the import here. We are also going to copy all these state variables from here, and we can also actually copy all these functions. So let's copy all this. So make sure we paste it above the return statement to avoid any errors. So we have everything here that we need, and we can place the table pagination in the return statement. So we are going to be placing the pagination below this table. So I'm going to copy it here, and we have to put a React fragment here and enclose this entire table and pagination within a React fragment, and this will clear all the errors. And now we can see we'll go to the browser and see how this pagination looks. So this pagination looks like this. We have options to select how many rows we want to display on the screen, and we also have options to go next or previous. But as of now you can see that this pagination is not really working, it's just placed here. So we are going to make it functional by implementing this on this table. So first thing we want to do is we want to change the options that we have here. So how many rows we want to display on the screen. So by default we can see that it's just coming by default like 10, 25, 50 and 100, but actually we can change this to whatever we want. So for this we'll look at the material UI documentation. So here in the documentation, if I go below, so I'll find the table pagination here. If I click on this link, I'll see this table pagination API. So I'll see this table pagination API, and there is an entire documentation on what all things we can customize here, and you can read more into this documentation and see what else options are there. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to use this one, rows per page options. So if I read into this, it says that by default these are the options that are going to be available, but there is a way to customize this by using this field on table pagination. So I'm going to copy this field and put it here. So this field is going to accept an array of numbers. So basically by default this array is like 10, 25, 50, 100, but in our application what I'll do is I'll just put numbers till 20. So we got a huge array of 20 numbers here. I'm going to save this and see if this has changed anything on the browser. So here on the browser I'm going to refresh it. So now you can see that we have a huge drop down. We can even select one. We can choose to show one row per page, and we can also choose to show 10 rows per page. So I have chosen only the numbers till 20 because in this case I only have 20 rows in the data, but you can actually choose this whatever you want. You can choose this to be up to 100 if you have 100 rows that you want to display. So in my case 20 is a good number. So now this pagination looks good with all the options that we need are here. Now how to implement this on this table? As of now nothing is happening. Even if I say I want to show 5 rows per page, nothing is happening here because this is data. We are mapping over the entire data and it's displaying in the form of table, and it's no way linked to this pagination. So these are independent and this is not affecting our table in any way. So basically if we want to have some effect of this pagination on this table, so whenever somebody is changing this or this, basically we need to change the data. We need to match the data with the options that are selected here. So basically what we need is, so when somebody is changing rows per page, we see that this is the state variable that's changing, and when someone is changing the page from the pagination here, when I'm clicking on the button and changing the page, so basically these two state variables are being changed from the pagination component. So what I want to do is I want to use a use effect here, and I want to track these changes. So if somebody is changing a page, or if somebody is changing rows per page, so as of now what I'll do is I'll track the changes. If somebody is changing a page or somebody is changing rows per page, I'll alert page and rows per page. So basically what we are going to do, because this is having some weird logic here that we are going to change. So here I'm going to remove the 10. I don't need 10 here. I just want to change rows per page to whatever the value is. So I'll save it. So let's see what's happening here. I'll just remove this logic here and I'll set rows per page to event.target.value. So I'm going to try and alert both of them together so we can see clearly if it's working or not. So I'll use something like this. I'm trying to alert rows per page, and also I'm trying to alert what is a page number. I'll save it again. So we see that the pagination is working fine when we change the page or when we change the rows per page. They are changing fine. So we see that our alert is working fine. When I click on the next, I am able to see the page number is 1 and the number of rows per page is 10. So our pagination is working fine. Now to implement this on this table, when I select that, the number of rows I want to show on the screen is 5 and my page number is 0. So basically what I have to do is I have to slice the data from 0 to 5. But if my rows per page is 5 and my page number becomes 1, I have to slice the data from 6 to 10. And I'll just show the rows that are from 6 to 10, and all other rows should not be shown on the screen. So to implement that logic, what I'm going to do is I'm going to slice the data. So I'll comment this alert here. So I hope you are familiar with the slice function in JavaScript. So what we will do is I'll create another variable data ref, and our entire data is saved in the variable called rows. I'm going to do rows dot slice, and I have to slice it from page into rows per page, comma, page into rows per page plus rows per page. Now this logic is a little bit tricky to understand, but if you let's say try to put the value of the page and rows per page, it will become easy to understand. So let's try that. So what if the value of page is 0 and my rows per page are 5? So in that case this command will become, now my value of the page is 0, rows per page is 5, so this will be 0, and my page into rows per page is 0 and rows per page is 5. So this basically I'm slicing the data from 0 to 5. And what if my page number is 1 and rows per page is 5? So in that case I'll be slicing the data from 5 to 10. So basically what I'm doing is whenever my page and rows per page are changing, I'm slicing the data, and now what I'll do is I'll set data to data .ref. So as soon as I set data to data ref, so because we are displaying data on screen and we are changing this data based on the selection on the pagination, we should be able to see this logic working on screen. So let's see. So now if I refresh it, I'm able to see 10 rows and page number 0 because I've set my default page to 0 and my default rows per page to 10. Now what if I go to the next page? So now I'm able to see 11 to 20 rows. If I go to previous, I'm able to see 0 to 10. What if I change rows per page to 5? So now you can see that I can see only 5 rows on the screen. I can go next, next. So basically whenever I'm changing the page and rows per page, my data is changing as per that because I'm slicing the data from by using this logic, and my pagination seems to be working fine. So I can even select my rows per page to 1 and I should be able to go next. In this case I'll be able to see only 1 row per page and I can go to the next page or previous page. So this is how we use pagination in React applications. If you find this video helpful, like it and subscribe to the channel. So I know this logic is a bit tricky to understand, but if you go step by step and try to understand it very logically, it becomes simple. So if you have any doubts in this project, you can leave me in the comments and we can get in touch and have a session, or I can try to explain you as much as I can. But to practice this, you will be able to find the link to my GitHub in the description. So pull this code and try it on your own, make some changes to it. I'll see you in the next video. Thank you.